Hello YouTubers. Well, we're going to call this particular type of video the question is. We get a lot of questions over the run of a week or a month on different topics, and like, Paul, how did you do this, or how did you do that, or what's the best for this, or what's the best for that, or where did you find this, or where did you find that? So every now and then I'm going to put out a video, and it's going to be titled The Question Is, and this will be number one. The question is. So one of the questions, you're going to have to excuse me too, guys, I got a bit of a head cold, so I'm having trouble breathing. But anyway, one of the questions that I received earlier this week was, Paul, I'm considering getting into welding. What's the best machine for me? Well, I'm going to attempt to try to answer that question, but it's kind of a trick question, and it's a question that I really need more information on. For instance, if you're the type of guy that's going to be out welding in the field, and you're going to need a different type of welder than if you were just the type of guy who was planning on welding within his shop. And of course, the type of welder depends on the type of material that you're going to weld as well. So there's a lot of variables there. So I assume that the person who's asking me this knows absolutely nothing about welding. So I'm going to start off, and it's going to be a very, very basic, easy to understand tutorial on what you need in a welder and the circumstances in which you need that type of welder. And it's going to be a short video. I'm not going to be doing demos. It's just basically here like I am here now. So let's start off. First of all, here in this business, I could be here welding all day. I could be welding anything from a thin piece of aluminum, a thin piece of steel, to a excavator bucket off a 320 cat, which weighs a ton. So, you know, there's a wide variance of different jobs that we do here for that type of work, you know. So I need all kinds of different equipment for that. Now over to my right, there's a Miller-Matic 252, and that's good for general purpose MIG welding, and that's a MIG welding torch, I call it, right here. And behind me, there's a, over there, there's a 350P welder, which is a much bigger MIG welder, but it can do two or three different types of processes when it comes to MIG welding. That's for the more advanced, heavy-duty type of welding and production type welding. Now, there's other times I'll get a call and they'll say, Paul, can you come out to the farm, or can you come out to the park, or can you come out to where we're to? We have a piece broke on the equipment. Well, then we have a mobile welder, which I'll insert the picture here. And we take that welder and we go out to the job site, and within that welding machine there's a generator that I can run power tools, and I can and do my type of welding there, which is considered arc welding. Now, in some other cases, somebody might say, well, Paul, can you come out to the park? There's a piece of stainless that needs to be welded. It's very thin. Well, what I'll do then is I'll take this machine here, and this is a Dynasty DX200 or 200DX, and right now it's hooked up to a cooling system, but you can unplug it and you can pretty well pick it up, throw the strap over your shoulder and go on with it. And the beauty with this is an inverter based machine. It's smaller, weighs about 50 pounds, and it's hooked up in such a way that I can plug it into a 220 line outlet, or I can unscrew the 220 line socket like that, and I can change it over to a 110 single phase. So that can go 220 single phase or 110 single phase. And it's as simple as that. And the machine automatically detects what it needs and starts to weld. Now, I'll just give you a close-up view of those plugs. And as you can see, that's how they work. So, you know, again, that's for a very advanced type of welding. But in that situation, what's great about using this machine is once I get on the job site, I can go and use it as a TIG welder, which is a torch. We call these torches, which looks like this. That's for welding very thin metal, and you use a filler rod. And you basically hook it up to your gas and you start welding with filler rod. Now, if I need to go arc welding, I'll just lay that over here for now, guys. If I want to go arc welding, where it's an AC/DC machine, I can plug this in, I can put a welding rod on, and I can start arc welding. All because it's an inverter-based machine. So, now, this is where we get into the situation is, well, what's the difference between arc welding and MIG welding, which is the two main processes that's used. I guess three main processes. There's arc, there's TIG, and there's MIG. Now, this is where you have to decide, as a newbie welder, what you need to do and what you want to do when it comes to welding. If you're going to be welding just inside your shop and you're trying to get started in an inexpensive way, well then what you could do is probably go arc welding. With arc welding you just buy a pile of rods. There's different rods for different types of metals, and they're a little bit more forgiving. You can use a rod for rust, you can use a rod for deep penetration, you can use a rod for very little penetration. There's rods for everything. What I would suggest to anybody that's starting out into the welding field, even as a hobby, is go sign up at your local trade school or college and see if they offer a night course. Because I'm going to tell you, you know, there's a lot of hazards involved with this stuff, and you know, if you're planning on just going it alone, you can end up getting injured or possibly even killed in some cases. Or the next best thing to that is if your next door neighbor knows how to weld and he's a qualified welder as such, or he's been around the industry for a while, I'm sure he could give you some pointers to keep you out of trouble. So now we need to determine what is it you're planning on doing. What is it you're planning on doing? You're planning on welding in your shop, or you're planning on welding outside your shop? Are you looking for an easy process, or are you looking for one process that can pretty well get you through all of it within the shop? Well, if you're looking for a process that can get you through pretty well any steel in the shop, arc welding is the way to go, in my opinion. It's inexpensive to get into. It's a little harder to weld, in my opinion. It's a little bit, you need a little bit more skill to weld arc welding, because you know, you got to understand the rod, you got to understand the metal, you got to understand what you're doing. But that's like anything. It's a slow process. It's a slower process because every pass that you make with this welding rod, it burns down. When it cools a little bit, you have to use a chipping hammer. You have to chip off the flux that's on the weld, and then you weld it again. And it's a bit slower. That being said, it's been used for 100 years or longer, and it's a proven system. It'll never die out, in my opinion. So, and it is the cheapest way. You don't need to have any gases like tanks that you see on these welding machines behind me. You can just go at it like this and go to it. I prefer to have, if you're going to go with an arc welder, you want to look for an AC/DC machine and at least a 220 volt system. The 110 systems are too small, and all they'll do is frustrate the heck out of you. So, and of course, you can handle pretty well anything that'll come in your shop. especially if you're trying to repair your own farm implements and stuff. Arc welding is the way to go. And they're a little bit more forgiving when it comes to dealing with rust. You can get away with a bit more when you're arc welding if there's rust involved. There's rods that you can do. You can get to like a 6011 rod that you can get to go over the rust, and they penetrate pretty good. So, you know, that's my opinion of this. I'm sure everybody's got their own opinion, but that's my opinion of it. I personally don't use arc welding much. In my situation, when I go out in the field, well, I got a spool gun that I can use on my big welding machine, but I do use arc welding. Like if I'm welding the excavator boom, I'll use basically this system here and the welding machine. Now, if you're looking for, in my opinion, an easier process of welding, well then there's the MIG, and that's this machine right here. And how this works is inside here, hope you can see this, inside here there's a big spool of wire, and once you set up your machine and you turn on your gas, that wire keeps coming out through that tip. I'll just come over a little bit closer so you can see it. So that's basically how it works. The wire just keeps feeding out through the tip, and around the wire here is where the gas comes out. Now the reason why there's flux on a welding rod or there's gas coming out here is it cleans the metal and it keeps the oxygen away from the weld as you're welding. And that's why you need that. If you don't have it, it's not going to work. Now, the advantages to MIG welding. In my opinion, it's an easier process to get to know. It's a cleaner process. Every pass that you make welding, there's no flux to clean off. So, like it would be with a welding rod. And it's a production type of equipment. There's no stopping and changing over the rod. You know, you can weld with this all day so long as the wire is still full on the spool. You know, and your machine is heavy enough to weld all day. So, it's a, the only thing that really goes against MIG is MIG don't like dirt. Like that there, you wouldn't try to weld that dirty like that. You'd have to clean it off really good and MIG weld it, but it's a beautiful weld when it's done properly. And of course, you know, guys who's good at this, using a stick or arc welding, you do some beautiful jobs with that. The other problem with this and this is moisture really don't bother that spool too much. But your rods, once you open the pack, you got to kind of keep them in an oven and keep them warm. They don't like moisture. They don't work well when they're damp. So, you know, if you can afford it, in my opinion, if you're working in the shop, that's the way to go. Go with a MIG. But go with a good quality MIG. Don't go to Canadian Tire or Harbor Freight, in my opinion, and pick up a $300 MIG welder. You get what you pay for in this world, guys. And, you know, like I use Miller, there's lots of good products out there. You know, even some of the offshore companies like Everlast and Longevity. I have never personally used them, but I mean, I see them on the forums and they're, you know, they're still there, so they must be doing something right. So, you know, look at those guys too. And look at a 220 volt system. You want something with a bit of oomph to it. The other thing you got to remember too, if you're planning on welding in your shop, you're going to have to check with your local insurance company and make sure that you're covered if there's ever a fire. There's a lot of hazards when it comes to welding. You know, you could catch the walls on fire, or you could, you know, you could catch a machine on fire. And when you are welding on a machine, you have to watch out that you don't short out electronics, and there's a lot of precautions. So that's why I always say, you know, I always tell people, look, if you don't know somebody who knows how to weld, go to your local college and sign up for a couple of courses, and that'll really set you straight. Now there's other types of welding, guys. There's gas welding where you can use oxygen acetylene and rods and stuff, and now we won't even get into that. I think the question was more aimed at what machine to buy. So, you know, when you see this machine here, this is very advanced. This might not look like much, but there's a digital panel here that requires a lot of setup to it. And that's for welding thin metals or aluminum. So, you know, forget about the TIG. Your choices are, if you're starting off and you're a basic welder, what is it you want? You want MIG, you want the arc. If you go with arc, you're going to be just dealing with moisture problems with the rods, storage problems. You're going to have an oven to keep them in, to keep them dry, and you're going to want to have a decent machine. You're going to want to have at least an AC/DC machine. You can burn 2 different types of rods then. And this one here is a 7018. This is probably one of the most common rods that's used for arc welding. And you'll have to have a variety of rods as well, different thicknesses of rods. Whereas with this MIG here, I've got the machine, and it's 220. I've got the gas, and I can weld all right down even smaller than a 1/8 plate with it, or I can weld up to a 1/2 inch thick in one pass with this machine. So, you know, there's the advantage, but you have to have a gas contract for your bottle, and you know, it gets expensive. So there it is, and it can't be no tizzer, guys. That's my opinion. And to answer your question, I've tried to. I would have liked to have the question asked me and tell me specifically what you were planning on doing or what you wanted to start welding with, and it would have been a much easier question to answer. But it boils down to 2 things: is it arc welding you're interested in, or is it MIG? If you want to go the cheaper route, you can go arc welding. You can pick up machines for $400, a good quality machine for $400. You can even watch Craigslist or Kijiji or whatever and see if there's a good used Lincoln or Miller on the go. Usually these old arc welders, they're usually transformer based. They're big, they're heavy, but man, they last a lifetime. They'll outlast you, your grandkids, and your great-grandchildren if looked after properly. I used to have one here, but I just never used it, so I just sold it. And if you want to get a MIG, well, you can pick up some decent, nice, smaller MIG welders, you know, from Miller or Lincoln again. You'll have to check with your local welding supply companies and see exactly what they would recommend, because I need to know what you want to do with it. But everything you see here is blue. Miller's been good to me. I have never had a Miller failure in 30 years in my welding business. So, you know, the product speaks for itself. So that's it. I hope I try to keep it as basic as I could, but sometimes it's not so easy to keep it basic. But again, 2 choices. It's either arc or it's MIG, my opinion. Now, I'm going to add some bonus video to this video, and you want to check it out. And hope everybody has a great weekend. It's Friday. It's 10 after 12, so I got some repairs here to do now, if I can keep the energy up to get it going. And I think we have another storm coming, so who knows, maybe another snow video. So guys, take care and be good to each other. Be safe out there, and God bless. Guys, bonus video time. If you're ever operating your backhoe on your tractor, you're wondering what time it is or how hot it is outside, feast your eyes on those. Pretty cool, eh? Anyway, they're sold by Clocks for Bikes. Ross and Linda are the people that you should be talking to. And hang on, guys, I'm all caught up here with strap and the flu. And anyway, pretty well everything I got their clocks on it. And this particular one here fits the rear rail perfectly on the backhoe, and it's 7/8 is the size of the bar. So if you're interested in putting them on your backhoe, just tell them Paul Short sent you, and they'll look after you. Well, they're going to look after you regardless of who sent you to them. They're great people to deal with, and I pretty well got them on everything. They're even on the lawnmower here. Just curious now. I wonder how cold it is. Hey, it's -10 in here. Ooh, brother. That's -10 Celsius, guys. So anyway, I just thought you'd get a kick out of seeing that, and I just wanted to include it as a bonus video. So, take care.